Hello comedians, today I'm going to give you my top 7 tips for dealing with props. I would urge all of you to create routines using props because it's going to better your comedy writing and certainly better your comedy performance, and there is easier access to paid opportunity when you stand out from the bill of the other comics. Great video coming up for you. I'm very excited to make it. Let's get it started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Comedy. My name is Gary Michaels and this channel is dedicated to new comedians. Each week I upload tutorial videos on comedy writing, performance and everything else in between. So if you're starting out in your stand-up comedy career, then I urge you to hit the subscribe button and join our community we have here at Let's Talk Comedy. On today's video I'm going to give you my top 7 tips when it comes to dealing with props during your live performance. I have used props in the majority of my performing career, from juggling knives and fire to being a magician and working with props with magic, also escaping from a straitjacket and working with the props being the straitjacket and a 30-foot chain, which I also got tied up with. I've got a great deal of experience working with props, and working with props has opened up a lot of doors to me as a performer. First of all, before I get into the 7 tips, I want to very briefly talk about the importance of using props. And perhaps you want to stick to a stand-up comedy way without using props, and that's perfectly fine. You can go down that road. But I would urge you to at least practice a little bit with a prop. Create at least 1 or 2 routines with a prop of your choice, and you will see that you will always stand out from the other comedians on the bill, and perhaps gigs will open up more to you because you have something different than just being a comedian on stage. Now, of course, in my opinion, there's probably no greater rush than just having the microphone on stage and conducting the crowd with laughter and seeing where the set goes from there. It's a brilliant rush. All this video is going to do is to hopefully motivate you to expand your horizons and give something else a go. So if you do decide to work with props in the future, it's going to open up more paid opportunities for you. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. Follow as many of these tips as you can and you will get the best when you decide to perform with your chosen prop. Here's tip number 1. The prop that you display in front of your audience first should be the prop you use last. Therefore, it should be the main focus of attention throughout the entire show. Now, this rule really only applies to a show if you're using more than 1 props. So let's say you are doing a juggling show. The finale should be the first thing you bring out. For example, an easy thing to follow would be a unicycle. Let's say you're going to juggle a couple of clubs on fire, and at the end of the show you're going to climb up on top of the unicycle and juggle on top of that. Well, the unicycle will be the first thing they brought out because obviously that's going to gather a lot of attention. It's a big prop, it's easy to gather a lot of attention. It just makes so obvious sense to bring that out first. Now, the same applies for any type of show. I'm using a unicycle because it's a big prop and it's very easy to see why that would be a good idea to bring out first. But even if the props you're using are very, very small, whatever you bring out first needs to be the main prop of the show. Now, if you're only using 1 prop for the entire show, I would urge bring it out at the very beginning. Just after a few seconds, people get used to seeing you and hearing you. That important piece of time on stage when you first get on there, just to allow people to hear how you sound on the microphone and hear and see how you present yourself on stage. Those few seconds are very important. But certainly very soon after that, bring out the prop and put all of your focus into it, and the audience will do the same. And keep it for the entire time, consistently throughout your entire show, until whatever you've done with the prop has been finished, and then perhaps you can place it away. But even then, I would say keep it on the stage for as long as possible. Let's move on to tip number 2. This tip is all about stage movement and focus. So you need to decide before the show if the prop is going to move around you and you are going to stay stage center, or if you are going to move around the prop and the prop stays stage center. So the message here is pretty obvious. There needs to be a focus point for the audience that's not moving. Now, of course, every rule can be broken, and from time to time you do see performers who use props, and even performers who don't use props, leave the stage and take the entire focus of the room over to where they are going if they break the fourth wall and interrupt the audience as they make their way around. It can be a lot of fun to do this. However, the joke is just that you're leaving the stage, and really that's the only humor there, and all your patter has to be about the fact that you are leaving the stage. You don't want to go into too much detail on a topic that happened to you that day as you're standing far away from the stage. There's way too much distraction and confusion going on there, because people, it's hard enough to get them on board when we're on stage rather than when we're off out of the spotlights talking about something. So you can see how I would urge anyone to stay on the stage when you're performing and certainly have a focus point which is stage centered and doesn't really move. Now, I will give you another example of this. This is why, if there's a big prop on stage or a prop of interest on stage, it's why the performer will hold the prop and talk about it. And if the performer wants to move around and talk to the audience and perform something else, usually they will bring a member of the audience up to hold the prop center stage. Now, this does a few things. One, you've got a lot of playtime with the volunteer that's now coming up. You can have fun with them and you can see where that goes, which is always going to be entertaining because you've picked one of them, and what better way of getting everyone on board to see how one of them will now react on the stage with the performance. A lot of fun to be had, always fun to do. However, fast forward a little bit and now you're having that spectator hold whatever prop it is, and so you can get to move around freely and do whatever it is you need to do for the next part of the show. All this time, the center focus on the stage is only getting stronger, because not any longer do you only have the prop there, but now you have a member of the audience holding the prop. So everybody is remembering that this is definitely important. He's brought one of us up to hold it. The prop the spectator is holding remains interesting and important the entire time they're holding it. So think about where the focus is going to be from your audience when you are performing. If you are using a prop, make sure it is stage center, and if it's not, make sure it moves around you, so you stage center, because then anything you hold or interact with remains important throughout. That was a deep one. Let's take a quick second just to relax. Let's move on to number 3. Another thing you can do with your prop is take it and smash it off the like button. If you're still here, you're liking the content, hit the like button, let me know you're out there and you're enjoying the content, and I would appreciate it greatly. Also, if you have a question you would like me to answer, I will make an entire video on your question. All you have to do is let me know what that question is in the comment section. But before that, right now, smash the like button. The prop should be interesting and understood all on its own. What I mean by that is, if you take a prop out in front of an audience and they've got no clue what it is and you have to go into detail to describe what it is, you've simply lost their interest. They're not going to be involved in whatever routine you have going on with that prop. It needs to be of interest. Now, it can be something that's quite boring to them, although you have a harder time to get their interest on it. But if it's simply a foreign object, something that you found in some weird store or made yourself, and it doesn't have any real meaning, and people have never seen the likes of it before, and you just think you've got this great routine with it, well, no one's going to pay attention to it in the routine. Now, perhaps that's the whole idea of your set, and it means nothing and you're putting meaning onto it. Well, that's a great place to go down, and it can be a lot of fun to create a routine around that. However, usually routines are done with props where people instantly know what's going on. And a perfect example I can give you is if a performer took out 3 juggling balls, everybody in the room knows exactly what's going to happen. Now, the majority of them might want to head for the door, but it still doesn't change the fact. Everyone knows, okay, they're juggling balls. Most likely the performer is going to juggle with them and do some comedy routine or some high skill routine is about to come up. They can all tell that story instantly by looking at it. Therefore, you don't need to tell exactly what the balls are. Instead, you can have something funny to say about the props because they've already filled in the blanks about what's going to happen in a bit. So you know what they're thinking when they look at the prop, and that's a great position to be in, because if you take out a prop and you know every single person in the room is now thinking what the prop is and what's most likely going to happen in the next few moments, well, then you've got them. Because whatever you say about it, certainly if it's absurd and funny and completely is a contradiction to what they're all thinking, well, that's going to get a laugh out of everyone. So it's a really easy place to play and get one over in the audience. And you can be as creative as you want in your own way, or whatever you tell them what's going to happen with the props, regardless of what's actually going to happen. You can really bring them out to an absurd place in the first few moments when you display a prop for the first time. Tip number 4 is you want to let the prop distract you from your own performance. Now, this might sound a little weird, like it's ruining the performance for you, but I'll say it in a slight different way and you'll get what I mean. Tip number 4 is you want to pretend that the prop you have brought out is distracting you from your performance, right? So obviously your set is learnt off and you know what you're saying. And the great thing about learning off our pattern and knowing exactly what we're going to say when we are going to say it is we can interrupt what we're going to say and make it look like we're thinking on the moment. And a lot of great comics do that, making it look like we're thinking on the moment. However, you can do something different with that too. If you display a prop and you put it on the table or you put it on the stand or wherever it is, it's on the stage and everybody can see it, or even you have a volunteer hold it, all of those good things as long as it's stage center and everyone can see it, and you are addressing the audience and you're doing a bit and you're doing a piece of material, you're doing a trick, whatever it is, and you do a glance at the prop and then you do a second glance, and it's almost like you've thought of something and it's interrupted your thought pattern. And then you can ask the volunteer that's holding it, or then you can go up and you can move it just a little bit like it wasn't perfect in the first place. And what that does is really heighten the tension in the room and gets more focus on the prop, because obviously if you're the performer and you've got a job to do and you're getting through a routine and your routine is interrupted because there's something not quite right with the prop, it needs to be moved, or something needs to happen with it, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Even if it's comical, you can move it 2 inches to the left. Even if it's only a joke you go for, it's still adding tension and interest to that one object that you have on the stage that you're going to deal with at some point. So another fun thing to do is to interrupt your own thought pattern in a funny way or a serious way and deal with the prop, do something to it, and then because you've learned off your set, you can just go right back into it without missing a beat and continue on. And the audience are back to enjoy your routine, but they're also thinking, I can't wait to see whatever you do with that prop. So that's a fun one to play with. Here is tip number, I've lost count, 5? I'll just edit it if it's wrong. 5. I think it's 5. Yeah. Tip number 5 is this. Create a piece of material you are going to perform that is just about the prop you are displaying in front of the audience. Now, this can be anything. It can be how you got possession of the prop. It can be the history of the prop. It can be your day-to-day relationship with the prop. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you to get creative. But do include a short or a slightly long piece of information about just that one prop and perform it. Because you don't just want to use it when it's time to use it. And you don't want it just to be a throwaway thing that it's now time to do it, let's do it, and get it out of the way. You want to be seen that you know a lot about it, even if it's only rubbish you're saying and you're getting a lot of laughs for saying it. I would urge you to go down that road rather than boring your audience about it. But definitely win your audience over, bring something out to be displayed, have it there so they can all see it, continue to win the audience over by entertaining them, then move on to talking directly and only about the prop. Because what this does is you've already won over the audience, and if they are now believing in you and they are going along with you, well, you want to talk about the prop so they'll believe in what you're about to do with the prop, whatever you're about to do with it. Because you're the leader of the pack, and if you know a lot about something and you tell the audience as the leader of the pack, they will hopefully listen because, well, you've proven yourself on stage to be entertaining, so now whatever you're going to bring out is hopefully going to be very entertaining, so they'll be more involved. And by you getting more material out, it's better for your writing process and your writing schedule, because you can create lots of material about the prop and it gets a lot more laughs. And if all the laughs are about the one prop, heightens all the tension in the room and the focus to that prop, as well as you being entertaining. All around winner. Certainly before actually doing something with the prop, you want to have a lot of funny things to say about it. Tip number 6. Now this is something you should not do, and I normally don't like wording it like that, but I just had to include this because I see it happen an awful lot. Certainly when I see comics using props, I see some of them making this mistake, and it's a big mistake, and it ruins the routine whenever they use props. Never use a prop immediately after displaying it in front of the audience. If you bring something out to show it to the audience and then do something with it, and the only thing you're going to do with it immediately and then put it away, you haven't given people enough time to believe in it, to focus on it, and for all you know, there might be 30% of the audience who simply didn't see anything, because sometimes a lot of people are going to need a little more time than others to understand what's going on. Not everyone can see the stage the same way. Not everyone can hear as well as what's going on in a microphone. And even if they all do get what's going on, you want to build the most important thing, which is reason to why the prop is there. And I don't care how strong the joke is. If you take something out and do something with it and throw it away, it always results in the same lukewarm response. And I do see it done as a throwaway. You take something out of a bag and do something and throw it away and and it's never a good reaction. You need to have respect for the props. You need to have respect for your audience time, because they have bought into who you are. They've bought into anything else you've brought on stage. Don't just ruin it, because another bad thing about doing it this way, if you bring something out and do something with it and throw it away as a throwaway piece, you're letting the audience know that I do jokes so quick and bring props to the entire show to use so quick that I don't even care if you're on board with what I'm doing or not. I'm just going to get through this. So it's kind of conditioning the audience to watch for something too quick. And if you do it too quick and they don't get the punchline, they won't listen to your next bit. And they certainly won't pay attention the next time you go to bring something out in front of them if it's a prop. So never use something straight away after bringing it out. Create attention on it, create focus to it, and importance with the other tips I have given you. Let's move on to tip number 7. You need to think about the overall picture and the importance of your individual props. Now, you also need to think about what kind of character you are, and this goes a long way to how you're going to interact with your props. So, an example, if you are an absurd, madcap, energetic performer and you've got a lot of different props and you do audiences games and all that kind of stuff, well then it's perfectly fine to be the kind of person who throws props around with the illusion of a crazy scattered stage. Now, I use the word illusion because even if you're going down that road of throwing things out of a bag and all these bizarre props and you're getting as crazy and absurd as you can, you still need to know where everything lands. It still needs to have a place that everybody, when they look at the stage, can see everything perfectly clear, because you don't want to confuse your audience as to where a prop is going. And there is nothing worse than coming up to a part of your routine and you look at the ground and you don't know where a very important prop is. And I've seen this happen only a handful of times to people, but there's no more awkward vibe in a room when an audience has to patiently and politely wait while a performer crawls around on their hands and knees under a curtain to look for something that's after going missing because they weren't paying attention when they were throwing all the props out of a bag. It's not what you want to do. If you're throwing everything out, you need to know where it's going to land. You need to have all of these things rehearsed so you give off the illusion this person's just getting up there and going crazy. Wow, this is mental. And then, of course, everything is in its perfect place. When you need it, you know where it is. Do not hurt your own performance by, well, heckling yourself by throwing your own prop somewhere it shouldn't be. Now, on the other hand, if you are a very slick performer, perhaps it's a juggling routine or a magic routine, you want to look very, very slick, you are not going to be the person who throws all the stuff out of the box. You want to take time to put the props on the ground, put the props on a stand. You want to take all the time in the world because, again, all of these things have importance and they all have to be in sync with who you are as a character on that stage. So think about the overall picture. Think about the center stage, what is going to be focused. Think about the types of props you're going to do. Think about who you are on stage and therefore how should you display an object or a prop that you're going to be using on stage. And finally, I would urge you, as I did at the beginning of the video, to choose a prop. It doesn't have to be one that's going to require a lot of skill, although that can be fun too. But if you don't want to learn a whole new skill, choose any prop and work a routine around it and make some comedy with it. Or perhaps use it with a volunteer. And you will have a lot of fun with that and you will stand out from the other comics on the bill, and who knows, maybe if it kicks for you and you get a great reputation, you're going to sooner or later have a big bag of tricks that you turn up and do all these interesting, absurd, great comedy routines. And even if you don't, well, practice it now and then, and all it's going to do is get you thinking in slightly a more creative way than if you just never used them at all. As always, thanks for watching. I hope this has motivated you to go and grab anything you can and create a lovely comedy routine with it. Click any of the links on the screen and even get more tutorial videos on this wonderful channel. And from me, I will see you on the next video. Right on.